What day of the week was Jesus Christ crucified? And what day of the week did he resurrect from the grave? Most of the church world today believes he died on a Friday and resurrected on a Sunday. So they celebrate a Good Friday crucifixion to Easter Sunday resurrection tradition. But is this true? And if not, does it matter? Is there something sinister lurking behind this church tradition? Well, I believe you'll be stunned if you watch this video through. So let's look in God's Word, for the puzzle pieces are there to get to the truth of this matter. But before we do that, the first thing you need to understand is the relationship between a Jewish day and a Roman day. So I've made a chart showing it. Notice a Jewish day begins at sundown, while a Roman day begins at midnight. So a Jewish day is made up of the nighttime period and then the daytime period. Nighttime, daytime. Nighttime, daytime. Sundown to sundown. While a Roman day, like our days today, goes from midnight to midnight. And since Christ's Passion Week was right near the spring equinox, which means equal nights, equal days, 12 hours of each at that time of the year, you'll see on the graph I have the width of the black period and the blue period the same. Because right at the time Christ was crucified, we were having roughly 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of nighttime. And sundown came right around 6 p.m. at that time of the year. So on the chart, you'll see 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. the following day was a Jewish day. And of course, the Roman day is midnight to midnight. And the last thing to understand here is the naming of these days. The Jewish day is simply named by its number. 7 days each week. So the first day, second day, etc. While the Roman day is named like our days today. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, etc. Okay, with all that understood, here's the key piece of information in the Bible that will lead us to the truth of what day of the week Christ was crucified. It's Matthew 12, 38 through 40. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to him, "Teacher, we want to see a sign from you." And Jesus replied, "A wicked and an adulterous generation demands a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." Wow. So 72 hours, 3 days and 3 nights, 3 night periods and 3 day periods. So when Jesus said 3 days and 3 nights, he really meant 72 hours he'd be in the tomb. There's no other way to take that. So here's something we know right off the bat. Whatever time Jesus was put in the tomb, that's the same time he resurrected, 72 hours later. And if you know the scriptures, you know Christ was buried in the tomb just before sundown the day he was crucified. So you already know he resurrected at sundown 72 hours later. So here's what happened the week Christ was crucified. The Bible records this. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So as we see here on our graph, the first day of the week arrives at sundown on a Saturday. That's the end of the 7th day of the week, or the end of the weekly Sabbath. And Mary arrived while it was still the nighttime period, on the first day of the week, and she saw the stone had been rolled away, and Jesus was gone. So when did Jesus resurrect from the tomb? At sundown Saturday, the end of the weekly Sabbath day, the very end of the seventh day of the week. Remember, Jesus' resurrected body could pass right through walls. Later the day he was resurrected, the disciples were together, and if you remember, all of a sudden, Jesus was just standing there amongst them. The doors were still locked. Well, this is how it was with his resurrection. Jesus didn't need the stone to be rolled away to come out of the tomb. He passed right through the stone, right out of the tomb, sundown Saturday, while the stone was still across. It was only later that day when Mary arrived that the angels had to get the stone out of there so she could look in and notice that he's gone. All right, so with all this understood, all we have to do now is backtrack 72 hours earlier to see when Christ was buried in the tomb. And we see it would have been at sundown on a Wednesday, which was the end of the fourth day of a Jewish week. So Jesus was crucified on the middle day of a Jewish week, the fourth day, during the daylight hours of our Wednesday. He did not die on a Friday. Jesus died on a Wednesday. And he did not resurrect on a Sunday. He resurrected on Saturday. So on both counts, the church today has it wrong. And I'm going to prove this even further with what we discuss next. And this is the most important thing: God's feasts and Christ's fulfillment of them. So for this, we have to go all the way back to when the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, roughly 1,300 years before Jesus arrived. God had placed the Israelites in bondage in Egypt for 400 years, and now he was working on delivering them through a man named Moses. 10 plagues God orchestrated to punish Egypt, to free the Israelites, and the 10th, the final one, was the worst one: the death plague. To spare the Israelites from this plague, God commanded each Israelite family to kill a lamb, roast it and eat it, and spread its blood on the front doorposts of their house. Then the death angel would pass over that house, and no one would be killed inside. The blood of the lamb would save them. God even told the Israelites the exact day to do this, on the 14th day of the Jewish lunar month of Nisan. He told them this day would forever be known as the Feast of Passover, and he wanted them to observe this event every year on that very day from thenceforward. God also told the Israelites to prepare unleavened bread, because Pharaoh would free them that very night. So God made another feast in honor of this, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. This was to be a 7-day feast from Nisan 15 through Nisan 21. So you can see this feast began immediately after the Feast of Passover on Nisan 14. God also commanded the first and the last day of this feast, the 15th and the 21st of Nisan, were to be days they did no work. These days became known as high Sabbath days, for they were a Sabbath day like the weekly Sabbath, except these Sabbath days could happen on any given day of the week. And then God created a third feast, the Feast of First Fruits. This holy day was to be kept right after the weekly Sabbath day ended, during the 7 days of unleavened bread. So it was to be kept on the first day of the week, whenever that occurred during the 7 days of unleavened bread. Okay, so every year the Israelites were observing these 3 feasts. For some 1,300 years. Then along comes Jesus. And here's what took place the week of his passion. Jesus was crucified on the 14th of Nisan, the feast of Passover, the same day the Israelites had sacrificed their Passover lamb all those years earlier. On the day Christ was crucified, Pontius Pilate asked the Jews, "But you have a custom of asking me to release one prisoner each year at Passover. Would you like me to release this King of the Jews?" See, it was Passover, Nisan 14. And this is why Paul later wrote, "For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed." Jesus was then placed in the tomb at sundown that day, sundown Wednesday, which was the start of the 15th of Nisan, the first day of the 7-day feast of unleavened bread, a high Sabbath day. So the Bible records this on the day Christ was crucified. Since it was the day of preparation, so that the bodies would not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day, the Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. See, the day after Christ's death was a high Sabbath, not the weekly Sabbath. It was Nisan 15, the high Sabbath day of the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And this verse proves it. And while we know the day before the weekly Sabbath is known as a preparation day, so too the day before a high Sabbath is also known as preparation day. And I'll prove that to you right now. If you Google this, is the day before a high Sabbath known as preparation day? Here's the response. Yes, the day before a high Sabbath, a major annual Sabbath, is indeed known as preparation day, or preparation. There you go. And all 4 Gospels record that Christ was crucified on preparation day. That was Nisan 14, the day before the high Sabbath of Nisan 15. Then Jesus remained in the ground for the first 3 days of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Nisan 15th, 16th, and 17th. He was in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. And then he resurrected from the grave at sundown on the 17th of Nisan, the end of the weekly Sabbath day. And what day did that bring in? The Feast of First Fruits. So Paul wrote, "But now is Christ risen from the dead, and become the first fruits of them that slept." See, Jesus resurrected on the very day of the Feast of First Fruits. He fulfilled the feast. He was the first fruits resurrection of the dead. Then later that morning, on the first day of the week, the 18th of Nisan now, while it was still dark, Mary found the stone rolled away and Jesus was gone. He had risen. So there you go. Now you know the truth of what day of the week Christ died and resurrected. There is no Good Friday crucifixion. There is no Easter Sunday resurrection. Christ died on a Wednesday and resurrected on a Saturday. The whole Good Friday to Easter Sunday tradition is nothing but a lie. But does it matter? The answer is yes. Yes. And here's why. Realize, I grew up in today's church world, so I know this from personal experience. Never once growing up did I learn about Christ's fulfillment of God's feasts. On their very days, the week of his passion. I never heard anything about God's 7 feasts. I was totally in the dark. But folks, listen. God didn't do these amazing messianic prophecies for them to not be talked about. Why? Because learning them increases one's faith. Each fulfilled messianic prophecy you learn is like a root growing deep into the soil of your heart. No one can take your faith away from you after you learn these things. Jesus once said, "I have told you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe." See, Jesus knew learning prophecy builds one's faith. You will believe. But today, in the mainstream church world, it's all hidden. The Good Friday, Easter Sunday tradition hides it all. Instead of learning prophetic truths, cementing one's faith in God, kids are running around hunting eggs. It's ridiculous. It's tragic. And the enemy of our souls is laughing at it all. I'll tell you my heart. I hate the word Easter. It disgusts me. It came from a fertility goddess, an abomination to God. But most importantly, the word Easter hides the word that should be used in the church for Christ's resurrection, the one that's in everyone's Bible. First fruits. Jesus resurrected on the very day of the Feast of First Fruits. We should be saying Happy First Fruits, not Happy Easter. Additionally, and this is my own personal pain for the past 16 years, it's a nightmare getting people to listen to God's 2028 end message. And you know one of the biggest reasons? Because people don't know Christ's fulfillment of God's feasts. They have no understanding that for some 1,300 years, God had prophesied the very day of Christ's death, his burial, and his resurrection. They just don't know. So when they see a message like 2028 end, they can't even begin to conceive that God prophesied the day of Christ's return. But he did. It will be on the Feast of Trumpets, God's 5th feast of the year. And so people continually parrot to me, "No man knows the day or hour. No man knows the day or hour." And they go on their merry way, clueless that that phrase is a Jewish idiom referring to the Feast of Trumpets. So all of this weighs on my mind at the Easter time of year. I know what the Easter tradition has stolen from people, and it frustrates me to no end. But who cares, right? Here come Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bonny trail. Oh, gag me with a spoon. And the Easter tradition has stolen even more. When you don't know the truth about a particular subject in God's Word, you'll never understand other passages related to it. For example, Daniel 9:27. This verse is about Jesus. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. Do you see it? The middle of the week. That's Christ's death on day 4 of the week. The middle day of a 7-day week. Wednesday, as we just learned. Christ's death brought an end to animal sacrifice. It's no longer needed. He made an end to sacrifice and offering. Christ confirmed God's covenantal seed promise to the patriarchs, with many, for 1 week, the week of his passion. And he did it during the 70th 7-year week of time. fulfilling what the angel Gabriel said he would accomplish during the 70th week, in verse 24. And you can learn all about this in my video entitled Daniel's 70 Weeks Explained, The Untold Truth. Watch it sometime. You'll be stunned. But the church can't get this because they don't know the truth of Christ's Passion Week. They don't know what day of the week Christ died and resurrected, so they'll never see it. There's even more the Good Friday to Easter Sunday lie keeps people from seeing in God's Word. Amazing things. But I'm not going to get into those right now. I plan on making a video about one of them in the future, even though I've already revealed it in my 2008 book, Undeniable Biblical Proof Jesus Christ Will Return to Planet Earth exactly 2,000 years after the year of his death. It's in the Moses chapter, and it's stunning. I'll just mention it briefly here, but I'm not going to elaborate. It's this. The 7 days of Christ's Passion Week were playing out yet again God's 7-day, 7,000-year master plan for planet Earth. In other words, God was confirming yet again the prophetic truth of his 7-day creation story, the actual week of Christ's Passion. Get the book and read it. It's stunning. So I'll leave you with one final thought. There's a verse in the Bible that says the Antichrist will think to change times and laws. It's Daniel 7:25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. Wow. Do you see it? He will change the appointed times. He will change Christ's Wednesday fulfillment of the Feast of Passover to Good Friday, and Christ's Saturday fulfillment of the Feast of First Fruits to Easter Sunday. But why would he want to do that? To hide the prophetic truths of God's Word, to steal the roots of your faith. Don't let him do it, people. Forsake this Good Friday, Easter lie. Demand your pastor learn the truth and teach it, or tell him your family will be leaving his church. See what he does then. See if everyone would stand up for the truth, something the Bible commands us to do. It's one of God's 10 commandments. Thou shalt not bear false witness. But that's what the whole Good Friday, Easter resurrection tradition is. It's bearing false witness. It's literally going directly against Christ's own words, saying that he would be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. He said that was the only sign he would give them. That's the sign that proves Christ is the Messiah. He fulfilled the prophetic essence of the story of Jonah. But that's all hidden. It's all mocked. The whole Good Friday, Easter Sunday tradition mocks that. But if everyone would stand up for the truth, the whole congregation, the devil would have no other choice but to surrender. So share this video. Share it with your family and friends. Share it on Facebook. Let the world know. And see how much flack you get back as you stir up the demons. Maranatha.